and they will be addressed separately. And before we move on to the next session, just a gentle reminder to please complete the feedback form if you have not done so. The link can be found in the chat below. In a few minutes, we will be starting an exciting industry panel with academic and industry thought leaders from various rapidly emerging sectors across ASEAN. The topic is Future-Proofing for Industry 4.0. This session will begin with an introduction by Ms Joan Tay, Director of the NUS Center for Future Ready Graduates. Ms Joan, please.
Thank you. Good morning, distinguished guests and esteemed panelists. I'm Joan from the Center for Future Ready Graduates. Our center plays an integral role in preparing NUS students for the work of the future. Collaborating closely with industry partners, we developed a 4-year career readiness roadmap to help our students root their values, build skills, and cultivate mindsets of curiosity and learning. This way, we are better able to match the skills and talent supply of our graduates with the shifting demands of industry. So against this backdrop, once again, welcome to the panel on Future-Proofing Industry 4.0. With us, we have 4 illustrious speakers representing global multinationals, a deep tech startup, and a very successful unicorn. All our speakers are deeply involved in the technology innovation space. They are Dr. Sonny, CEO and founder of Arevo, a 3D printing company in Vietnam. Mr. Heng, Group Managing Director and Head of Regional Public Affairs at Grab. Ms. May Yap, Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President at Jabil. And Mr. Raimund Klein, Executive Vice President and Head of Digital Industry for ASEAN at Siemens. They will share with us their perspectives on Industry 4.0, its transformation on the nature of work for companies and individuals, and how we should prepare for it. And moderating this panel will be Associate Professor Guan, a business school faculty, and also the Academic Director of the Masters of Science Industry 4.0, a program designed to help NUS alumni and mid-career executives reskill and upskill. With this introduction, I shall now hand this time to Prof. Go.
So let us start with our introduction of the panel first, and then we'll go into the question and answers. And I will also have some time at the end for our audience to ask questions. So feel free to type your questions into the chat box and we'll call them up later on. So shall we start with the introduction first? And first we will have Ms. May Yap to introduce herself.
Yep, thank you, Professor Go. Right, so I think for me, it's really an honor to be here with the other panelists and the audience this morning to talk about a topic that I feel very passionate about, right? So I kind of know Professor Go a few years ago, and we started by actually engaging on this topic, right? And he knows that I really feel for it. So let me very quickly introduce myself. I'm May, right? I'm the Global CIO of Jabil, and I'm responsible for the global IT management and leading the company digital transformation agenda. So since joining Jabil about 6 years ago, I've been working very closely with our manufacturing plants to drive Factory of the Future, or what we call the Industry 4.0 initiative, among other things that I do. So a quick introduction of Jabil, right? So Jabil is a US manufacturing company. So we are headquartered in Florida in USA. We are one of the biggest and largest company in the Tampa Bay area. We have 100 plants operating in 30 over country and 260,000 employees worldwide. So we are ranked 121 in Fortune 500 ranking, and we provide the full spectrum of manufacturing solution from design to engineering, production, after sales service for world famous brands. So we operate in the traditional EMS space and also healthcare and consumer lifestyle goods manufacturing. So that's a quick introduction about myself and the company. Back to you, Professor Ko.
All right, thanks. Next, Mr. Raimund Klein.
Yes, good morning. My name is Raimund. I'm responsible for the operation engineering sales service here in ASEAN. And actually, at the moment, I'm more responsible for the transformation of our own operation, because with the new technologies of Industry 4.0, we're going more from a product-related sales to a consultative sales. So we are at the moment active in 8 countries here in ASEAN, and we see that the enablement of the Industry 4.0 technologies is still a problem. So thank you very much for inviting me, and happy to join this conversation.
Okay, great, thank you. Next, Mr. Lim Heng.
Hi, my name is Heng. I lead public affairs in Grab. Very happy to be here. Many of the universities are producing a lot of the people that are working in Grab now, so we're super grateful. We are a technology company. We do many things, largely bring everyday convenience to Southeast Asian. Food delivery, transport, payment services, other financial services. Very happy to be here. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks. Next, Mr. Sonny Vu.
Hi, a lot of fun I think we're going to have on this panel. I've been an entrepreneur all my life, started and sold a number of companies, most recently a wearable technology company called Misfit. We sold that to Fossil Group in 2015. I think the largest wearables exit in history next to Fitbit. And we really just were focused on building a fashion, a brand that was at the nexus of fashion and technology. Since then, we've been investing in a number of companies, deep tech, a lot of industrial related companies. And currently, actually, we didn't just invest in, but I joined this company, Arevo, which does automates the production of large carbon fiber composite structures. So airplane fins, helicopter rotors, chairs, bicycles. We printed a bicycle, carbon fiber bike. So it's a manufacturing technology company. And we're a Silicon Valley company with a large operation in Vietnam, which is where I'm based right now.
Okay, all right, great, thanks. So let me start with our first question. I think over the last 2 days, we hear a lot about digital transformation, the impact of technologies on companies. We also hear about the impact of COVID-19, even for our universities. And I think the last 2 days, we had conversations about, even for NUS and the other universities, how we would adapt to the disruptions from technology as well as the disruptions from COVID-19. So I'd like to hear from you, maybe from your company's perspectives, how are you coping or adapting to the disruptions as well as to COVID in the last couple of years? And so maybe we start with Mr. Raimund first. We can't hear you, I think.
Okay, so I said, actually, it sounded a little bit strange, but COVID was our best chief digital officer, because our business is not at all impacted from COVID. It's the other way around, because, if the productions are not loaded and they can, because of competition, not reduce price because they have a certain cost, they need to productivize. So during the COVID time, the companies invested a lot in the new technologies, being in edge computing for quality measurement, being in new social distancing. So they had to use digital twin software to transform their current operation on the job shop into a social distance operation. So actually there are many examples where COVID was really the driver for enabling these new technologies. Unfortunately, I must say, because this was more done out of a not so good situation of manufacturing industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's from my side a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. Shall we hear from maybe another, multinational company? So maybe May, do you have any thoughts on the disruption and how the company is coping?
Yeah, so I think I kind of echo what Raimund is saying. So COVID actually is unfortunate, but it has also actually accelerated a lot of our digital transformation agenda, right? So not only on digital transformation, but also the adoption of technology, the collaborative platform, and so on and so forth, right? So I think there was a lot of reports, like from Gartner, from IDC, that says that, hey, acceleration of digital transformation actually improved by at least 50%. But I actually do also wanted to actually talk a little bit more specific about, how the manufacturing, right, or especially in Jabil, how do we actually see Industry 4.0, right, and in our sector, right? Because the way that we actually do see Industry 4.0 is not that this is a trendy stuff. This is something that we have to do and we need to do, right? So I see it as a fundamental mission that we have to do. So the objective for us is very clear, right? So we need to do it because we need to have a more predictable environment. We need to make sure that we have skilled employees, skilled workforce that's actually put into the manufacturing environment, and safety is of top importance. So while we actually think about safety and we are deploying smart machine, we are deploying automation. So we need to actually really leverage on all this smart machines, smart automation to actually leverage on the learn, think, and act, right? So the ultimate objective of why we wanted to do it is for better quality, better work life, faster speed, lower cost, more flexibility. So that is really a motivation for us to truly have to do it, and we have to do it to survive, right? Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks. How about you, Heng? I think for Grab, it's a platform company and less so on, the physical devices. How do you actually see, the technology disruption landscape, and also, how do you adapt within this landscape, especially in the light of COVID as well?
So I think COVID, first of all, was a huge disruption, and our first priority was how do we ensure that the essential services continue, right? Whether is it delivering food or whether is it getting people to go to clinics, to hospital, and that really just took a lot of effort just to ensure continuity. Once we're able to stabilize that, we started to think about how do we ensure livelihoods of the partners on our platform, whether they are driving things, delivering things, or selling food, right? And that's where I think we started to see a lot of innovation and willingness to innovate and to harness technology where there wasn't before. Whether is it hawkers in Singapore, whether is it traditional wet market merchants around Southeast Asia, we see a strong need to adopt and move fast and go onto the digital platform, and that has been something that has been positive. We now have many merchants on the first step of digitizations, mom and pop shops who understand how to list their products onto a platform, how to do digital payments, and we need to build on that. I think we're still at the beginning of that journey, but we've gotten many traditional smaller businesses onto the platform, and the next stage is to not just list things, but to also drive their business and operations in a digital manner, and that's the next step. So we have a bit of momentum thanks to COVID, but there's a danger of life going back to so-called normal and the momentum of digitization stopping, and it's important to use this momentum and push it further.
Okay, thanks. So in fact, we're hearing a lot about digitalization accelerating changes, the COVID accelerating the digitalization changes, right? Because in a way, we have to adapt. How about Sonny, like from your perspective, how do you see the landscape shaping out?
Yeah, I think with, we're in the digital manufacturing space, and so the people have definitely taken a lot of interest in decentralizing manufacturing. That's what the dream of additive manufacturing holds, and that's the dream that we are pursuing here at Arevo, at least for the small space of composite materials for now. As a company, we haven't really been, well, we've been affected, I guess, in the United States. We have an office there that has had to work in a careful way. but most of our employees are based in Vietnam, and by and large, Vietnam has not had, basically we haven't had COVID. So we've had, I think New Zealand has 15 times the number of COVID cases that Vietnam has. And we have 1/20th the number of, 20 times the population. So things have been open since May last year, schools, theaters, everything. So life's been pretty good. And so we've really moved forward at full speed, and actually, I guess relative to the rest of the world, at hyperspeed, actually, because building a factory here hasn't been too much of an issue. But we're reminded of the stark reality every time we talk to our colleagues outside of Vietnam that it's a different world now.
Sure. Well, in some ways, the supply chains are still interconnected, right? But obviously, there are changes in how the structures are changing over time. Maybe let's move on to Southeast Asia. So, we talk about innovation and disruption globally and regionally. How about Southeast Asia? From your perspectives, how do you see the Southeast Asian innovation landscape? So maybe we start with you, Heng, to tell us about Southeast Asia.
Sorry, I can't hear you very well. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So we were just saying that in the Southeast Asian landscape, how do you see disruption and innovation happening from your perspective?
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm having a bit of...
I can hear you.
So I'm hearing the question is around disruption in the Southeast Asia landscape.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think digitization is happening in Southeast Asia. I think for a very long time, when we think about digitization, we think about China, we think about US. I think with the emergence of big tech companies in the region, we are seeing that more and more people are paying attention onto the potential of Southeast Asia. So I think we're really at the very beginning of the journey. If we look at the digital penetration and infrastructure, it is already there. So the basis for disruption is there. The pinpoints are there as well. So there's a lot of problems to solve. For example, in Grab, we are really trying to solve day-to-day problems. And we have seen that if we can use technology and really solve pain points, then it can really make a difference. So I think the ingredients are there, but it's important that we focus on the pinpoints. It's not just about using technology for technology's sake. And so as companies, as universities think about how to drive digitization in our economies, I think key is to focus on the pain points. Lots to be done, and I think we haven't really seen anything yet. We're really at the beginning of a long 40-50 year journey of really digitizing and bringing the value to the next level.
Okay, great. How about yourself, Sonny? Your perspectives on innovation in Southeast Asia, having started a company in Silicon Valley, but now based in Vietnam.
Well, I think that we have a lot of very positive trade tailwinds for innovation here in Southeast Asia, because it's overall a politically friendly place to be doing business, and fairly open to many parts of the world, both Europe and to the US. And so I feel like there's a lot of interest in doing things here. One, from a interconnected world perspective, and then also from a domestic marketplace. I think people are finally waking up to the fact that, oh, there's billion people around here, in a fairly small part of the packed in part of the world, or I don't know, depends on which countries you count, right? So there's a lot of people with growing spending power and whatnot. And finally, especially in a country like Vietnam, lots of talent to be tapped into. It's a pretty educated place. World Economic Forum PISA scores, which is a sum of STEM and I think some literacy scores, we're right up there with Switzerland, and I think we're between 1/8 and 1/12 of the GDP per capita of Switzerland. And so there's like this Vietnam effect in terms of education level. And there is kind of a running joke of, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich in Vietnam? And it's true. The country needs to catch up in terms of its economic development. But overall, it's a very open economy here. Many of the economies here are very open. And so, yeah, there's lots of tech startups starting all the time. I think one challenge, though, is that as a region, is each country, except maybe for Indonesia, is not really that big compared to the big economies like Europe and US or China, Japan even. And so you really have to be multi-country to succeed, I think, if you're going to do something in Southeast Asia, at least in terms of a large scale. So like what Grab is doing, very successful model of a multi-country region play. So like Vietnam, it'd be tough to build a $1 billion company. It's tougher to build a $1 billion company serving just the Vietnamese market, for example, than say if you were to just serve the Chinese market or just the US market. So the playbook is a little bit different.
Okay, great. So we're hearing about the long-term potential of Southeast Asia in terms of the growth potential, the kind of talent that we have over here in terms of well-educated in technical skills, right? And perhaps a multi-country approach because the countries are somewhat different in terms of culture, and we need to have a targeted approach towards each country. Maybe we can hear from May and then Raimund on your perspectives as well.
Yeah, definitely, right? So if I actually kind of think through the technology disruption and innovation in Southeast Asia, I wanted to say, why not, right? Why not? And we are as good in Southeast Asia like everybody else. I think Sonny actually hit on the nail, right? We have a very good record of STEMs graduates. So in fact, I have my entire IT shared services center based out of Penang, right? Where we have more than a few hundreds of people sitting over in Penang actually doing development work for us, right? And many of that dedicated resources are actually building applications, building infrastructure system to support our Industry 4.0 effort and, helping us to actually get the smart factory up and running in our operation worldwide, right? So I think the other aspects that I do actually wanted to talk about, right, is that personally, I see the adoption of Industry 4.0 as a very important transformation agenda, right? So, and in all transformation agenda and journey, it's important to ensure that there are a few key elements that are in there. So it doesn't really matter to me whether you're in Southeast Asia, in China, or in East Europe, right? I think the essence of it is that, do we know what's the main problem that we wanted to solve, right? So as people who wanted to embark on this Industry 4.0, do we have the right process in place? Do we have the right people in place? Do we actually have the right technology in place, right? So on people, I'm thinking, are the people actually well trained and equipped with the tools and technology to actually help us embrace the digitalization and the transformation and process, right, on how process can be optimized continuously, right? So in the manufacturing shop floor, we actually take a more systematic approach, right? So it doesn't matter, again, whether our factory is actually in China, in East Europe, in T-Town, in Penang, right? So we actually take a very consistent approach, what we call the SOSA model, where we actually think about, before we do anything, right, can we simplify it first? Can we optimize it and standardize it? Then we can automate it. So that is a standard approach that we are following in every country, right? So I think that actually helped us a lot when, for Jabil perspective, where we actually embark on this kind of digital transformation.
Okay, from Siemens perspective, it's a very easy approach. If you look to the GDP development in the different continents, then Asia is at the moment the driver of the growth, number one. Number two, look to ASEAN with 650 million people. The local wet markets cannot supply the food anymore. So the biggest market growing at the moment is food and beverage. Digitalization of food and beverage, agriculture. Here, I give you an example, aquaculture 4.0. It's a multi-billion-dollar market, because at the moment the oceans only provide protein for 100 million megatons of fish, and another 100 million need to come from fish farm. So now you look to the yield improvement and to, let's say, cost reduction of fish farms. Here we use machine learning, artificial intelligence, 3D cameras to measure the biomass of the fish automatically with the system we have, and then optimize the feed conversion rate, by example. The problem we have is talents. We still have the problem with talents, because I give you an example. We at the moment try to build up here a center of competence for artificial intelligence, where we need 30 artificial intelligence specialists, and it's very, very difficult to find them. Then a little bit the speed of transformation. We see that the speed of transformation in countries where the government has created a digitalization roadmap for the country itself, these countries move much quicker than countries without such a digitalization roadmap. Because here, let's say, all forces are a little bit more organized and focused on, let's say, the roadmap, which defines a little bit the direction for the different players in the ecosystem, being it universities, being it companies like Siemens, being it research and development institutions, but also the associations. And last but not least, there are two trends in the markets which are platform related. One we can see on the top right side, it's a transactional platform, which is Grab. The second platform is technology platforms, which you develop with the new digitalization approach and then multiply them in the different markets, by example, here, aquaculture. So ASEAN, Asia is, let's say, the 21st century is an Asian century, not a European, not an American.
All right, thanks. So we are hearing about the need for looking at business process, right? And, in addition to the technology, and also, looking at the sort of traditional industries, right, which are big industries in themselves. So the aquaculture, the agriculture, shipbuilding, those type of traditional industries that people may not pay attention to, but actually those are huge industries in themselves and have a potential for the digitalization and the use of platform technologies to actually create new efficiencies. So, building on that, right, what do you think, are the skill sets that we need as individuals to thrive in this kind of age? So we hear from your company perspectives, but what do you think about the individual skills that we need to thrive in this kind of environment and to be able to partake in those opportunities within Southeast Asia? So shall we start with Sonny?
Yeah, skills. People often talk about soft skills as being really important, and us Asians not so good at soft skills. And I would take exception to that. I think it just depends on what context that we're talking about here. But that said, it's still very true. I think it's going to take a little bit longer for robots and computers to catch up to humans on that. They will eventually, but we've got at least a generation of science away for that to happen, which is good. This question has come up quite a bit because people have asked, what do you look for in students? What do you in not just Arevo, but in the companies that we've invested in and try to recruit for? And it's taken a while to figure this out, but because the schools here are asking that, like, how can we train people? And I realized that it actually goes to something that Mr. Lim was talking about on the we were just chatting in the chat as well simultaneously here, and that is attitude. Hunger to learn and a heart attitude to serve each other and to be part of a team. It's so rare. It's not something you learn necessarily. There's no class on humility or a class that will teach you to be hungry, that you just are or are not. And the question is, how do you foster that kind of thing? An attitude of like, it's never good enough. We got to keep pushing. and a hunger to learn things and get out of our comfort zone. And it's just, I don't know, that just seems like a universally desirable trait and skill. I don't know if it's a skill or if it's a to be harnessed or a trait to develop, but I think just about every company would fall over themselves to get people who are like that, because they are the ones who will be given the most authority and the most they'll win the most respect and the most influence, and they're the ones who are going to be able to grow themselves and their team and the company the most, not the folks who think they know enough, who don't feel like they need to learn or don't feel like they need to serve anybody other than themselves. And so, yeah, there you go. Sense of, yeah, so a hunger to learn. That's probably the top skill or trait.
Okay, great. Heng, do you want to share your perspective on what you think are the key skills?
So first, I think the labor market is going through some really fundamental transitions. Positive side in a sense that it has become much more adaptive, much more fluid, different forms of employment. You could be a freelancer, you could be a gig worker, you could now be at the beach of Bali and still be a programmer serving a Silicon Valley company. So on one hand, the labor market has become more fluid, and that supports economies as they transit, right? So that lubricant in the labor market is super critical, and we're seeing different forms emerging. So that's the plus side. I think the negative side is it's going to be very difficult for people in the job market to really adapt to this. Some do it better, some find it great, others will find difficulty in transition. So I think it's the bets that you need to place as an individual has to be continuous, right? So there's a need to keep thinking about it maybe is not the right word to use, but you kind of need to figure out what's your value add to the job market, what's the product, what's the value proposition you're bringing to the job market, and constantly ask yourself that question, because the value that you bring is of a limited time, and then while you are adding value to it, you need to think about what other values you need to add as the market is changing, right? In Grab, you see very interesting examples of people using our platforms as transition support, right? So they want to go from one job to the next job, they realize they need to retrain, they still need to earn money, and so during the time where they are retraining, they will try to drive Grab during downtime from taking courses. We have a Grab driver who recently became a Grab software engineer because he was learning while he was driving, right? So there are opportunities like these, and I think what we need to do as an ecosystem is to allow for this flexibility in the labor market, and that means also learning in a much more flexible way, not sort of just going to school for 3 years, 4 years. Getting a degree and coming out and you're done with it, but finding nuggets of time where you can learn, making it much more modularized, and harnessing technology so that we can really allow people to say keep changing their value proposition, keep improving on that, and I think that would be the kind of mindset that is needed to keep finding what kind of value add I need to bring as an individual, and harnessing on technology and the flexibility that labor market provides to be able to have a kind of long-term sustainable career. It's a long answer, but I think it's the difficult thing that all our undergrads and grad students are facing today, this massive unknown, but also this massive opportunity.
Okay, great. So we are hearing about attitudes, right? In terms of, the hunger to learn, the drive to excel being more important, perhaps even than pure academics. And then also in a sort of fluid job market, how do we actually upskill ourselves? How do we remain flexible and being able to adapt to changes very quickly and sort of look out for the next new job, right? And of course, the role of, in some ways, of the gig economy, right? Where they can provide some kind of transitional support while we are still learning. So maybe, we can hear from the perspectives of our other panelists as well, maybe May and then Raimund.
Yeah, definitely, right. So I think I cannot agree more with what Sonny and Heng were saying. I think it's really all about the mindset and the attitude to want to learn and actually wanted to upgrade, right? So it can be, where we are right now in terms of digitalization, the power of digital, right? The power of IT, it has actually definitely shifted the workforce. So, but again, right, that we also have encountered folks who are in our industry who are really unwilling to actually transform, and who doesn't actually who are still reluctant, right? And they are actually kind of in a very pessimistic mode to actually say that anyway the robot is going to take my job away, anyway the automation is going to take my job away, so it doesn't matter what I do. So that's another spectrum, right? Definitely we do not encourage the people to actually go into that spectrum, but it's really, when you wanted to learn about it, then that is all this opportunity that can open up, right? Because we are talking about new skill set that we are advocating right here. We are talking about machine learning. We're talking about, the new ways of doing things. How do you actually analyze data, right? So definitely mindset, I would say, and then definitely the being able to be digitally savvy. I think that's the other skill set that we talk about, right? And then the third one is really moving away from the traditional thinking, right? Put the emphasis instead on creativity, put the emphasis on creative thinking, problem solving, and I think like what Sonny was talking about, soft skill, communications, being able to articulate the problem, being able to talk, being able to discuss, being able to collaborate. So that's the aspect of the soft skill, right? And then definitely not to miss out while we actually talk about all this digitalization, then definitely all this skill set that we are looking out for as an employer, right? Analytics skills, the ability to code, the ability to actually do programs, the ability to actually be able to adopt and use technology effectively and efficiently. So I think in a nutshell, that's what I have to say.
Okay, great. So both combination of digital skills as well as the soft skills that make us human, right? And therefore able to differentiate from the machines. How about yourself, Raimund?
Well, I can tell you from my experience with let's say all from these polls, what we do in the market, 20% of the industry 4.0 technologies are enabled inclusive China here in Asia. And still talents are missing. And I give you an example. We realize that in the consumer market, in the high-end consumer market, some companies start to print perfume flacons with ceramic printer, which means you need design it with generative design, and generative design has artificial intelligence included. So we approached the product design universities and asked them if they're interested to take part, and that we train them in our training center for generative design with artificial intelligence. Actually, it's not that I want to be nasty, but they did not even realize that this trend is at the moment happening in the market. So which means the continuous benchmark of the curriculums and the needed required, let's say, tool set the students need to leave the universities, I think is something which need to be established. Or the students leaving with profound technology knowledge, but not with a state-of-the-art technology knowledge needed immediately, seamlessly to be integrated in the production. That's number one. Then there is another action field, the existing operators and existing managers. Because now imagine all the students coming, beefed up with all the knowledge of the technologies, and then they come to an old guy like me, and I'm not interested in these technologies because I'm old, I'm happy, and I don't care. So what we invented actually is an Advanced Manufacturing Transformation Center, not by Siemens, it's another platform. It's an ecosystem of academia institutes who come with their students. And you have there around about 1,200 square meters where you have all Industry 4.0 technologies from all different companies. It's not only Siemens, it's, by example, 3D printers, Stratasys, EOS, titanium, Exxon, ceramic. And now we educate operators. We educate the managers because they need to do the budget for these new technologies and they don't know the benefits, so they don't know how to budget it even. So here we have a complete new area of education, executive education on the one hand, and for Skills Future, the operator education, where we also participate. So we have three educational sectors which somehow need to go hand in hand to develop the whole enablement of the technology quicker. The one is the academia institutes benchmarking the curriculums, if the content is in the right way. The second one is the operator skill up, and the third one is executive learning, because people in my age, when I talk to them, they don't know even the technologies and the benefit of the technologies, and they do the budgeting. So this is a little bit, let's say, the three parts where I see not only universities need to act, also we as multinationals need to create new educational topics. We call it the digital garage, so that the managers coming with the operators and we solve the problems step by step.
Okay, great. So I'm hearing about the three sort of levels, right, that you are targeting at. So the executive education, and then the mid-level kind of training, and then also how do we train on the job floor as well, which I guess kind of leads to another question that I have. And we have some questions on the panel, which I see from Prof. Raimund Tan, and I think a comment from Prof. Ayub Sadiq as well. So we should address those. So I will come back to that, but because this is kind of related to, so we hear a little bit about this kind of requirement, right, that you mentioned about what universities need to do. So since we are in a university forum, so what is your wish list for universities, right, in terms of what do you think we should teach, and what do you think we want our next generation to learn? And that could be at both the undergrad level, right, the people in their early 20s, and also at the postgraduate level in terms of continuous education for people who are in their 30s and maybe even 40s. So if you have any perspectives on that, I would invite you to share.
So independent, I would start. There was a discussion about data analytics. The wish from companies like Siemens would be that we have more students working before they really leave the university in projects together with us. I give you an example. We looked for 10 data analysts from universities who then work with aquaculture to see how the operation should work in a more smooth way. And here the wish is really to cooperate closer with universities, get students, implement the students in real projects, that they feel a little bit really the heat, how things are done in let's say, in an operation at the end of the day. That would be something, which would be my wish.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so something that's applied and sort of implement together with the company.
Correct.
Okay.
I agree, right? So if I can actually chime in with what Raimund is saying, so definitely the internship is actually very important, right? Partnering with schools and the students and get them to really work in the industry and get their hands dirty. So the other thing that I also wanted to comment a little bit, right, is, in Jabil, we actually partner quite extensively with university worldwide, right, including Singapore, Malaysia, China, US, and so on and so forth, right? So in specific, I think to Professor Go's point, right, how about the continuous education part? So we actually leverage on this university to deliver our data science classes to, well, we can't actually generate a program called the Citizen Data Scientist class, where we really wanted to groom our own citizen data scientists within the corporation. So we partner with university, and university will actually sit down and design all these programs with us, the courses with us, and actually teach our employees on data science. So that's one aspect of it, right? So that's a 6 months program that we can't roll out. So curriculum is actually provided by the university. So that's one aspect that we are working with university. So the other aspects that we are also working with at university, besides the internship and partnership, so we do actually leverage on university to actually carry out R&D research on difficult problems, right, that or challenging problem in the industry that we are facing right now, and have the professor actually lead certain R&D exercise. Let's say, well, we have challenges in terms of actually generating a certain algorithm for a certain piece of cosmetic inspection. So that's where we will actually go back to university and say, hey, so this might be actually something that's worthwhile to actually invest your time, invest and work with your students to actually find out what's the best algorithm to help us solve an industry problem, right? So those are the few aspects that we are working with university right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, in fact, that was one of the things that we talked about yesterday as well. I think, you know, for our NUS president was actually talking about sort of industry and academic collaboration, where we actually bring together sort of a practice together with, you know, our professors to solve the problems, and therefore both potentially can benefit. And I think the idea of this industry project is certainly something that we look at as well. So for example, the Masters in Industry 4.0, we actually have a capstone project, and many of our master's programs have a capstone project where they actually attach to a company for 3 to 6 months to actually solve their problem under the sponsorship of the company. Maybe I'll invite you, Heng, and then Sonny to share your thoughts, you know, both on the hard skills and then maybe on the soft skills aspect as well, if you have any thoughts on this, in terms of how you can work with the universities to actually, you know, help improve our workforce.
Maybe I'll go the other direction. I think a lot of things have been talked about partnerships, which Grab also partner a lot with you know, NUS or ITB and the likes, in terms of supporting on training. But I actually think one of the things that we kind of always forget is that a lot of the technology that is Industry 4.0 has been developed in universities, ground research, things that we don't talk about now. When we think about Industry 4.0, we think about companies like you know, Siemens and you know, the big companies, but a lot of the ground research has been done in the universities, and I think there's a danger of forgetting about that the universities have a core role to play in building some of this early stage technology that is nowhere close to, you know, commercialization. And I think that needs to continue to be a key focus for universities, because they do research that no companies would have the patience to think about. And so I think that's a key role for university. And I think the other thing is also for university to then also incubate companies that can then grow into incubate companies that can grow to become unicorns and big players, right? So I see both universities not just churning out students and workforce, but university churning out startups and companies as well. And I think that is going to be key if Southeast Asian economies is going to grow our homegrown tech companies, homegrown technology companies. So I think that's the second role that it needs to play. And then I think the third thing I think is coming that's worrying me quite a bit is, not worrying me, but I think that's the education sector is going to face a deep disruption from edtech, right? You can already see that coming with, you know, traditional education models breaking apart, and it can be a threat to the traditional universities. But it can also be an opportunity because, you know, the traditional universities have the brand, the reach, the channel. And I think maybe the next 5-10 years will be a time where universities need to rethink about their roles in fundamental research, their roles in churning up startups, but also their roles in kind of reinventing their business model so that they can ride on edtech and really bring education to the next level. I don't have the answer, but I know that I can see that coming as a challenge.
Okay, great. Sonny, yourself?
Yeah, I think the answer to the question, what should universities be doing to help our next generation prepare for the next generation, of course, depends on what your goal is, right? If it is to crank out awesome workers, then yes, you know, get better soft skills. Hard skills are also pretty important, you know, more industry experience, I get it. But also, maybe there's a broader societal question of what, you know, what would be a great university experience? You know, like what would maybe a more personal approach would be, what would I want my kids to what kind of university experience would I want my kids to have, And I think I'd really want them to just be able to leave with a wonder of creation, of like wow, like of a desire to discover more of creation, and a desire to, and an ability to be able to do so, ability to learn, desire to learn, and more tactically, an ability to sit down and focus and, put your phone down and read and study, like that, those are, I mean, if my kids exited university with that, I think they could get any job they want. Like, honestly, who cares about internships? I mean, like we look at resumes, we see internships, and we know half of them are jokes anyways, and who knows how they got the internships. I mean, because in 1 or 2 years time, things kind of, just 1 year of experience at a company wipes out a lot of internship experience in terms of how useful it is. Now, let me talk about something a little bit more, something I'm more familiar with is the startup world. A lot of people like to do startups and whatnot, and there's different views on who should play a role in developing startups and whatnot. And the answer is entrepreneurs should play a role in doing the startups. People really get some experience, especially if you join like a medium stage startup. Then you understand the chaos that needs to be brought into order. The processes that don't exist that need to be created, and the challenges that face you. And I think once you've been through that fire, it's one of the most valuable things I think one can learn, whether you end up working in a larger company or starting your own company. And so I think, I don't know, that would be one encouragement I would have to the students these days, to university students now, because I think that, startups are in some ways kind of over glorified, because they're just generally not a good idea to do, because 95% of startups fail, right? So you probably shouldn't start one. But joining one, not a bad idea.
Okay, thanks. So we're hearing about learning from the startup experience, even if we don't start up. So probably in some ways, gaining from, the experience and sort of mindset of being flexible and being adaptive, right? So those are the kind of soft skills that I think we want to train. And of course, we are talking about internships with the larger companies as well that can help provide sort of the foundation for their growth. And I think Heng mentioned about the commercialization aspect as well. So I think, even for NUS, we are doing that. We are looking at fundamental research and using that fundamental research to commercialize, right? So in the past, it was about publishing papers, but now there's a push to actually commercialize all these technologies with our own internal grants as well as government grants to actually take it outside and sort of hope to grow the next, hopefully unicorn, but at least the next, exit of a successful startup. So I think we do look at that, and I'm sure that the audience has some questions on this. So please continue to ask, and then so let me go back to Professor Raimund's question early on, and I think that would be probably answered by Raimund and May. Food supply chain losses represent an important opportunity to reduce environmental footprints while providing improved nutrition. Are there any emerging technologies on the horizon to address this problem?
So if I start, if you look to the CO footprint, fish has the lowest, followed by chicken. Beef is the worst. And as I mentioned, these digitalization, aquaculture 4.0 is not quite a small project. So these are batches where you produce 400 tons of fish each year, barramundi in this way. We're moving now to shrimp farming, by example, which is a complete different technology, because when shrimp is hungry, they are noisy, and fish has more activity. So we measure with the camera also the activity. There, I know there is, by example, 3D printing of protein in test, because we in our EMTC, we have a lab for bone printing, as a customized human spare part if you have a skull injury, by example. So we know that the human material used also, let's say, is used in certain ways to print food protein in this way. But here I cannot release anything further there. So there are technologies, yes, which are upcoming, especially in the 3D printing arena.
Great, thanks.
Singapore actually has some really amazing innovations in this aquaculture 2.0. Temasek Life Sciences, TLL, has some amazing work they're doing with grouper fish, where you have a much higher meat to a fish ratio than normal. And it's not a non-GMO, really amazing work they've done.
So just to let you know a little bit, it's not so much regarded protein, but what we do, here we develop a bacteria sensor, because in 1 liter of seawater is 1 million different bacteria. Now, normally what you need to do for disease prevention, you have to put antibiotics in the water, but this is, as humans know, not so comfortable for us. So what we measure is the composition of the bacteria in the water itself. And when there is a disease breakout, we take machine learning for pattern recognition. And then from the 5 diseases for barramundi, by example, we take probiotics to bring back, let's say, the water in a harmonized bacteria level. So these are complete new technologies also for protein, and let's say as an environmental footprint, not to use antibiotics, by example. We use skimmer for taking out, let's say, the waste of the water, so not just flushing it into the sea. And with it also what you see, the algae problem, which in Germany you see sometimes at the sea, which comes from overpollution of water, is also avoided here. So this is, by example, one project here in Singapore, the aquaculture, what we're driving very much and developing, because it's as I mentioned, it's a multi-billion-dollar market in the future. Mm-hmm. And it has the lowest CO2 footprint.
Yeah, I'm sure that's an important sector within Southeast Asia, right? Aquaculture and agriculture. Media, any thoughts on this?
Well, I must admit, this is probably an area that I'm not really familiar with, right? So yeah, it was fascinating listening to Sonny and Raimund, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But I do actually wanted to echo, right? The part about pattern recognition, the part about, being able to actually understand the machine learning, how do we actually leverage on that? I think that will come big with any industry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, that's where a lot of opportunities are, right? The traditional industries that people think are not, are not yet digitalized. That's where a lot of things can happen. I think Professor Ayub has some comments as well. Do you have a question that you want to ask? He says, all this hunger, eager to learn, hardworking, innovative mind, independent, able to work with limited resources, flexible. We call it entrepreneurship mindset. So do you have any questions that you want to ask on this, or just a comment?
Yes, it is just a comment. We see exactly the same in the, even though technology is much more advanced, still what you call the attitude of the people that all the panelists are discussing. We have been seeing this one. That's why in our curriculum in University of Brunei Darussalam, we emphasize on this, instilling the entrepreneur mindset. We even develop a manual for our academics. If they are teaching in module, whatever subject you are teaching, you can put in some of these elements to instill this entrepreneur mindset. I mean, when students are working on projects with what they call with limited resources and taking a challenge and see opportunity. All these things are we pay attention. I mean, to instill this mindset. That's what we do in the University of Brunei Darussalam. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. I see
Sorry,
Nicholas.
Professor Goh, just to interrupt. So we're currently running a bit short on time. So we maybe just take this chance if there are any speakers here who would like to give their final statements or final words. That would be good.
Any last thoughts?
The last thought from my side, what we say, Industry 4.0 is a journey. It's not a jump. You need to develop it. It's a gradual improvement of the manufacturing and production side. And it's a consultative approach, not a sales approach. In the past, is you need a very broad knowledge of all the technologies, as every production has another problem. So there is not one fits all. You need a very broad technology knowledge, bandwidth, to then consult the problem into the right digitalized solution. This is a little bit the key.
Okay, great. From our other panelists?
I think for me, I would just like to summarize it very quickly, right? So it's about technology, it's about data, about process, it's about organization change. So I think the takeaway is be clear about the vision and really what problem are we trying to solve here through Industry 4.0, right? And what kind of end state do we want to achieve? So very much like what Raimund said, be bold, innovative, but yet realistic, right? Establish the right partnership internally within the organization and externally to work with. So yeah, so that's why I wanted to summarize it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other two panelists, Sonny, Heng.
No, I agree. I think focus on the pain point, get started. I think the formula is not a secret sauce, but it's really hard work. So really grateful for this topic.
Okay, great.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
This is great. This is great discussion.
All right, great. So thank you very much for your time. I think we went a little bit over time, but also because we started a bit late. So thank you once again to our panelists for the discussion and to our audience for the questions and the interaction that we have. So now I think I'll hand the time back to Nicholas to continue.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, panelists and